I grew up in a small suburban town in Ohio, the kind of place where everybody seemed to know everybody else's business. The streets were lined with oak trees that turned golden in the fall, and the biggest event of the year was the high school football game on Friday nights. But for me, life was never about football or cheerleading or fitting into the mold of what most kids in my town thought mattered. For me, life was about dreams. Dreams I shared with one person who meant more to me than anyone else in the world, my best friend, Lily Carter. Lily and I met on the very first day of kindergarten. I remember sitting alone at a tiny blue table, clutching a crayon in my sweaty palm, terrified that nobody would want to sit next to me. But then this little girl with curly blonde hair and the brightest smile I had ever seen plopped down beside me, dumped her crayons onto the table, and said, "Want to be best friends?" Just like that, it was decided. From that moment on, we were inseparable. We grew up together in every sense of the word. We rode our bikes around the neighborhood until the streetlights came on. We spent summer nights lying on the trampoline in her backyard, staring up at the stars, whispering secrets we'd never tell anyone else. We celebrated birthdays, cried over middle school crushes, and spent countless hours working on projects together. But most of all, we dreamed big dreams that felt far away but always possible when we were side by side. By the time we hit high school, we had crafted this perfect vision of our future. We both wanted to go to college, but not just any college. We wanted to go to Columbia University in New York City, because to us, New York wasn't just a place, it was a symbol. It was freedom, opportunity, adventure. Lily wanted to study journalism, to tell stories that mattered and give a voice to people who didn't have one. I wanted to study film, to capture emotions on screen and create stories that made people feel seen. Together, we pictured ourselves in a tiny apartment in Manhattan, surviving on coffee and bagels, chasing our dreams while keeping each other afloat. It wasn't just a plan. It was a promise. We said it so many times that it became almost like a prayer. We're going to college together. We're chasing our dreams together. Nothing will ever break us apart. But as the years went by, I started to realize something that scared me. Lily was a star, and I was just me. She had this magnetic personality that drew people in. She was president of the student council, captain of the debate team, and editor of the school newspaper. Teachers adored her, students looked up to her, and even adults in town always said, "That Lily Carter is going places." I, on the other hand, kept to myself more. I poured my heart into writing scripts for our drama club, filming little short movies with my camera, and editing late into the night. People respected me for my creativity, but I was always the one behind the camera, the one in the background, the one nobody really noticed unless Lily dragged me into the spotlight. Still, she always made me feel like I mattered. She always reminded me of our dream, always made sure I knew we were in this together. When college application season rolled around in senior year, we filled out our forms side by side at her kitchen table, laughing nervously and drinking iced coffee like our lives depended on it. We proofread each other's essays, reminded each other of deadlines, and whispered about what it would feel like to walk the streets of New York as official Columbia students. I remember one night in particular. It was late, and we were sitting on her bedroom floor surrounded by acceptance brochures and half-eaten bags of chips. The glow of her fairy lights bathed the room in a soft golden hue. She looked at me with that same spark in her eyes she'd had since we were kids and said, "No matter what happens, promise me this, we're going together. If you don't get in, I'm not going either. We're a team, right?" Her words made my heart swell. I laughed nervously, brushing it off, because deep down, I didn't believe she'd ever have to make that choice. Of course, we'd both get in. Of course, the universe wouldn't be cruel enough to split us up. We were destined for this. We had promised. But fate, I would later learn, doesn't care about promises. Fate doesn't care about childhood dreams whispered under the stars. Fate doesn't care about two best friends who believed they were unbreakable. The first letter came in early March. I'll never forget that day. We were at school, and Lily ran up to me in the hallway, her face pale but glowing all at once. "They emailed me," she whispered breathlessly. Columbia. The decision's here. My stomach twisted in knots. Open it, I urged, though my voice shook. We huddled in a corner by the lockers, her phone trembling in her hand. She logged into her portal, pressed the button, and then gasped. Tears filled her eyes instantly. I got in, she whispered, almost like she couldn't believe it. Then louder, I got in. She threw her arms around me, laughing, crying, spinning in circles. Students nearby clapped and congratulated her. She was glowing, radiant, unstoppable. I forced myself to smile, forced myself to hold her tight, forced myself to say, I'm so proud of you. And I really was. But beneath the surface, a quiet fear gnawed at me. My letter hadn't come yet. My fate was still hanging in the balance. When mine finally arrived a week later, I opened it alone in my bedroom. My hands shook as I clicked the portal, as I waited for the page to load. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. We regret to inform you. I stared at the rejection letter, my eyes blurring with tears. My chest felt hollow, like someone had ripped out my heart. All I could think about was our promise. Our dream. The vision of New York, the tiny apartment, the late nights chasing our passions. It all crumbled in an instant. I didn't know how to tell Lily. I didn't know how to look her in the eyes and admit that I hadn't made it. That I wasn't good enough. That I was the one breaking our promise. When I finally gathered the courage, she hugged me and whispered, It doesn't matter. We'll figure it out. Maybe I won't go either. But I saw the flicker in her eyes. The hesitation. The pull of her dream that she couldn't deny. And deep down, I knew something had shifted. Our promise was no longer unshakable. The cracks had begun to form, and soon, they would shatter everything. After my rejection, I tried to tell myself it wasn't the end of the world. People said there were other schools, other paths, other opportunities. But those people weren't Lily. They didn't understand the weight of the promise we made, or how much of my identity was tied to the dream we had built together. For the first week after the letters, Lily tiptoed around me. She didn't bring up Columbia much, and when she did, it was only to say things like, It doesn't matter where we go, we'll still chase our dreams together. Or maybe I'll take a gap year and we can figure things out. I nodded and smiled, but I could tell by the way her voice wavered that she didn't believe it. And neither did I. I saw it in the way her face lit up when teachers congratulated her. I heard it in the excitement that spilled out when she thought I wasn't listening. She was glowing with possibility, her future spread out before her like a glittering road. And me? I felt like I was standing at a dead end. One afternoon, about a week later, I walked into her house and found her sitting at the kitchen table, acceptance letters spread out in front of her, highlighter in hand as she circled the words, Welcome to the class of 20XX. Her mom was beaming, telling her how proud she was, how this was the beginning of everything she'd worked for. I froze in the doorway, my heart twisting painfully, before she noticed me and quickly shoved the letter back into its envelope. It hurt, but I couldn't blame her. She deserved to be happy. Still, something between us had shifted, something fragile, something I couldn't quite name. The next few months blurred together in a haze of senior year rituals, prom, yearbook signing, graduation rehearsals. To the outside world, Lily and I were still inseparable. But privately, I felt the gap between us widening, piece by piece. Prom night was the first time I truly felt it. We had gone shopping for dresses together weeks before, laughing in dressing rooms, twirling in front of mirrors, making silly poses as if we were on a red carpet. But when prom night arrived, she spent most of her time with her date, a guy from the debate team she'd been flirting with for months. I tried to laugh along with other friends, tried to enjoy myself, but the truth was, I kept looking around for her, my best friend, my anchor, and she was somewhere else entirely. After prom, we sat in her car in the parking lot, heels kicked off, mascara smudged from laughter. That was when I finally asked, So, what are we going to do next year? Are we still, in this together? She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw hesitation instead of certainty. She reached for my hand and squeezed it. Of course. Always. I just, I don't know how yet. But we'll figure it out. Her words sounded comforting, but her eyes betrayed her. They were already looking toward New York, toward Columbia, toward a life she could almost taste. Graduation came faster than I expected. On that hot June morning, we put on our caps and gowns, posed for photos, and cheered as our classmates crossed the stage. When Lily's name was called, the applause thundered. She was valedictorian, of course, and her speech was everything you'd expect, full of hope, fire, and dreams of the future. I clapped until my hands stung, but inside, I felt like I was watching her float away, like a balloon slipping out of my grasp. That summer was supposed to be ours. We made lists of all the things we wanted to do before she left. Road trips, late-night movie marathons, bonfires at the lake. But little by little, those plans started to unravel. She was busy with orientation prep, with part-time jobs, with new friends she'd met through Columbia's admitted students group. She still texted me, still invited me over sometimes, but it wasn't the same. I remember one night in July when I drove past her house and saw lights on inside. I texted her, asking if she wanted to hang out, but she didn't answer. Later, I saw her Instagram story. She was at a bonfire with a group of kids I barely knew. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to be jealous, but I couldn't help it. For the first time in my life, I felt like an outsider in her world. The day she left for New York is burned into my memory. We stood in her driveway, surrounded by boxes and suitcases, her parents bustling around loading the car. She hugged me tight, whispering, "This isn't goodbye. You're still my best friend. Always." I nodded, trying to believe her, trying to hold onto the promise that had defined us for so long. But as I watched the car pull away, I felt an emptiness settle into my chest. The first few weeks of her being gone were okay. We texted, FaceTimed, sent each other pictures of our daily lives. She told me about her classes, about the city, about the excitement of living in a dorm full of ambitious, brilliant students. I told her about the community college classes I'd enrolled in, about working part-time at the local coffee shop, about the same old town that suddenly felt lonelier than ever. But soon, the calls grew shorter, the texts less frequent. She was busy, always busy. Busy with classes, with clubs, with friends. And then one day, she didn't answer at all. I tried again the next day. No response. A week went by. I started seeing her posts on social media, pictures with her new friends, smiling on the steps of Columbia's library, captions filled with hashtags like #dreamlife and #blessed. I wanted to be happy for her. I really did. But instead, I felt abandoned, replaced, forgotten. By the time Thanksgiving rolled around, she came home for the break, but it wasn't the same. She was different. She carried herself with this new confidence, this new energy. She told stories about professors and city adventures, about nights at coffee shops that stayed open until 3 a.m. She barely asked about my life. And when she did, I could see it in her eyes, the pity. The quiet judgment that my life wasn't moving forward the way hers was. That night, lying awake in my bed, I realized something that broke me more than the rejection letter ever had. Lily had moved on, and I was left behind. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't even begin to imagine, was that behind her shiny new life, behind the laughter and the Instagram posts, she was hiding a secret. A secret that would change everything I thought I knew about her, about us, about the promise we made. Winter break came sooner than I expected, and when Lily came home again, I told myself things would go back to the way they used to be. That somehow, the months of silence, the ignored texts, and the miles between us would vanish the moment we were face to face. But I was wrong. She seemed different. Not just more confident, but older somehow, like she'd lived an entire lifetime in just a few months. She talked fast, always distracted, her eyes darting to her phone every few minutes as if she had somewhere better to be. When I tried to tell her about my new screenplay idea, the one I'd been working on for weeks, she nodded absently, scrolling through messages, barely listening. It was like I wasn't enough anymore. The worst part was that I still clung to her, desperate for scraps of the friendship we once had. So when she invited me to a little get-together at her house 2 nights after Christmas, I showed up, clutching a plate of cookies, hoping it would feel like old times. Her living room was filled with people I didn't recognize. College kids, city friends she'd brought home. They sat on the couches, laughing loudly, sipping sodas and playing music from someone's phone. I felt out of place the second I walked in. Lily hugged me quickly, but then drifted away, pulled into conversations with her new crowd. I stood awkwardly by the snack table, nibbling on my cookies, watching her laugh in a way I hadn't seen in months. A part of me wanted to leave, but another part of me refused to give up. This was my best friend. She was supposed to be my person. At one point, I overheard one of her new friends say, "So, are you going to tell her? Or just keep pretending?" Lily laughed nervously and shook her head. "Not tonight. She doesn't need to know. Not yet." Her words hit me like a slap. Tell me what? Pretending about what? I wanted to confront her right there, but fear held me back. Instead, I plastered on a smile, pretended I hadn't heard, and left early, my chest aching with questions I couldn't silence. That night, lying in bed, I replayed every interaction, every glance, every secretive whisper I'd noticed since she got back. Something was off. Something she wasn't telling me. By January, she was gone again, back to New York, and once more I was left behind in Ohio with my doubts. But this time, the seed of suspicion grew inside me. I started watching her social media more closely, looking for signs. That's when I noticed the gaps. Photos that didn't make sense. Captions that seemed carefully worded. Posts that hinted at something beneath the surface. And then there were the times she disappeared completely, days without updates, excuses about being too busy, only for pictures to surface later of her smiling at some event I'd never heard about. The more I noticed, the more unsettled I became. This wasn't just the natural distance of two friends growing apart. This was deliberate. She was hiding something. I tried to push the thoughts away, tried to focus on my own life, my classes, my job at the coffee shop, my writing. But it felt like every corner of my world was haunted by her absence. She had been the center of my universe for so long that without her, everything felt meaningless. By spring, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to visit her. I told her I wanted to see New York, to experience the city we had always dreamed about. She hesitated, clearly surprised, but finally said, "Yeah, sure. Come for a weekend." Her tone was flat, like she was agreeing out of obligation, but I didn't care. I just wanted to see her. The trip was overwhelming from the start. The city was everything we had imagined, loud, alive, electric. But when I arrived at her dorm, she seemed almost annoyed to see me. She introduced me to her roommate, gave me a quick tour, and then rushed me out the door like she didn't want me lingering in her space. We walked through the campus, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of what we used to share. But the more time we spent together, the clearer it became. She wasn't the same Lily. She checked her phone constantly, disappeared for long stretches, made vague excuses about meetings or study groups. On my second night there, I woke up in the guest lounge where she had let me crash, only to realize she still hadn't come back. I sat there, staring at the ceiling, wondering where she was, who she was with, why she hadn't told me. The next morning, she finally returned, her hair messy, eyes shadowed, wearing clothes I hadn't seen before. When I asked where she'd been, she brushed me off. "Don't worry about it," she muttered. But I did worry. I couldn't stop. It wasn't until my last day in New York that I caught a glimpse of the truth. We were walking down a busy street when someone called her name. A guy, older, maybe mid-20s, approached with a smile that felt too familiar. She froze, her eyes wide, then quickly pulled me away before they could say much more than hello. "Who was that?" I asked as we hurried down the sidewalk. "No one," she snapped. "Just someone from class." But the way she avoided my eyes, The way her hands shook slightly told me everything I needed to know. Whoever he wasn't just someone from class. He was part of the secret she was keeping from me. When I boarded the bus home later that afternoon, my heart was heavier than ever. I stared out the window as the city disappeared behind me, wondering how we had gotten here. Two girls who once promised each other the world, now standing on opposite sides of a wall built out of lies. I told myself I would let it go. That maybe it was none of my business. That maybe I was just jealous, insecure, reading too much into things. But deep down, I knew better. I knew Lily was hiding something from me. And I knew that when the truth finally came out, it would change everything. After my trip to New York, things between Lily and me grew even more strained. I told myself I wouldn't push, that if she wanted me to know what was going on in her life, she'd tell me. But silence has a way of eating at you, hollowing you out until you can't ignore it anymore. By summer, we barely spoke at all. She didn't come home as often, and when she did, her visits were short, hurried, like she was just passing through. Every interaction felt scripted, every smile forced. And behind her eyes, there was always something else, something I wasn't allowed to see. It all came to a breaking point one humid July afternoon. I was at the coffee shop where I worked, wiping down tables during a slow shift, when the bell above the door jingled and in walked Lily. I froze, stunned. She hadn't told me she was coming home. "Hey," she said, offering me a tight smile. She looked exhausted, her skin pale, dark circles under her eyes. I stammered something about how surprised I was, asked why she hadn't mentioned visiting. She shrugged. It was last minute. Just needed some air, I guess. We sat down at a corner table, and for a moment, it felt almost normal, two best friends catching up. But then her phone buzzed, and I watched her face pale as she glanced at the screen. She shoved it back into her bag quickly, almost too quickly, and muttered, "Sorry, it's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. I knew it wasn't. That night, she came over to my house for dinner. My mom was thrilled to see her, fussing over her like the daughter she never had. But as we sat at the table, I noticed the way Lily pushed her food around without really eating, the way her mind seemed elsewhere. Afterward, we went up to my room, and I finally asked, "Lily, what's going on? You've been different. Ever since you left, it's like you're hiding this whole other life from me." She froze, her eyes wide, then looked away. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "You're imagining things." But I wasn't. I could feel the weight of the lie pressing between us, suffocating me. And then, in that silence, her phone buzzed again. Before I could stop myself, I glanced at the screen. Just one name. Aaron. She grabbed the phone instantly, her face flushing with anger. "Don't look at my phone." "I didn't mean to," I blurted. Who's Aaron?" She hesitated, her jaw tightening. "No one. Just a friend." But the way she said it, the way her hands trembled, told me it was so much more. That night, she left abruptly, muttering excuses about needing to help her mom. But something inside me snapped. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I couldn't keep letting her pull away while I clung to the scraps of what we used to be. So the next day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I snooped. I knew her social media accounts by heart, every username, every password we used to share when we trusted each other completely. She had changed most of them, but one slipped through, the email she used for school projects. My hands shook as I logged in, guilt gnawing at me, but desperation driving me forward. And that's when I found it. Dozens of emails. Long threads between her and someone named Aaron. I clicked one open, and my breath caught. I don't know how much longer I can keep this a secret. She's going to figure it out eventually. But I can't tell her, not yet. Another email. "You're the only one who makes me feel alive in that city. But if my family, or especially her, finds out, I don't know what I'd do." My chest tightened as I scrolled through more. There were references to late-night meetings, to money, to choices she regretted. And then one line that shattered me. "She still thinks we're best friends." But if she knew the truth, she'd never look at me the same again. Tears blurred my vision. She wasn't just keeping a secret. She was deliberately hiding something from me, something she believed would destroy us if I knew. I closed the laptop, my heart racing, my stomach churning. I wanted to confront her immediately, to demand answers. But fear held me back. What if knowing the truth really did ruin everything? What if she was right? Still, the seed had been planted, and I couldn't unsee it. A week later, fate intervened. I was walking downtown when I saw her, Lily, standing on the corner near the bus station. And she wasn't alone. Beside her was the guy from New York, the one she had hurried me away from months earlier. Aaron. They were standing close, too close. His hand brushed hers, and she didn't pull away. She looked up at him with an expression I hadn't seen in years, soft, vulnerable, raw. I ducked behind a parked car, my heart pounding, watching as they spoke in low voices. At one point, she pressed a hand to her forehead, as if overwhelmed, and he pulled her into a hug. I couldn't breathe. My mind spun with questions. Who was he? What did he mean to her? Why had she hidden him from me? Before I could stop myself, I stepped out from behind the car. Lily? Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock. What are you doing here? I ignored the question, my gaze flicking between her and Aaron. Who is he? For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then she whispered, He's my secret. The words cut through me like a knife. Aaron gave me a wary look, then muttered something about giving us space before walking away. Lily stood frozen, her hands shaking, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I swallowed hard, my voice breaking. Why didn't you tell me? We're supposed to be best friends. We promised. She shook her head violently. You don't understand. If you knew everything, you'd hate me. Try me, I whispered. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, like she was fighting an internal battle. Finally, she said, I'll tell you. But once I do, nothing will ever be the same. And in that moment I knew. The promise we made all those years ago was about to shatter forever. We sat on the steps outside the bus station, the summer air heavy and still around us. My heart raced as I waited for Lily to speak, but she just sat there, staring at the ground, twisting her hands together until her knuckles turned white. Finally, she whispered, I never meant for you to find out like this. Find out what? I asked, my voice trembling. That you've been lying to me? That you've been hiding this guy, Aaron, from me for months? She flinched at my tone, but didn't look up. It's not just about him. It's everything. I couldn't tell you, because if I did, you'd see me differently. And I couldn't lose you. My chest ached. You already lost me, Lily. You did that the moment you shut me out. Her eyes finally met mine, filled with tears. I didn't shut you out to hurt you. I shut you out to protect you. From me. From all of this. I shook my head, anger and confusion warring inside me. Stop being cryptic. Just tell me the truth. She drew in a shaky breath, as if gathering every ounce of courage she had left. Aaron isn't just some guy I met in New York. He's older. He works for the university. He's not supposed to be with me. My stomach dropped. You mean, like a professor? She nodded faintly. He's a graduate assistant in the journalism program. I met him at a seminar. We started talking, and it just happened. At first, it was just conversations about writing, about life in the city. But then it became more. And once it did, I knew I couldn't tell you. I knew you'd judge me. I stared at her, stunned. This was the secret she'd been guarding so fiercely? This was what she thought would destroy us. Lily, I whispered, why? Why would you risk everything, your future, your reputation, for him? Tears spilled down her cheeks as she shook her head. Because he made me feel alive. He made me feel like I wasn't just another ambitious kid in a sea of thousands. He saw me. Really saw me. And when I was drowning in that city, terrified that I didn't belong, he was the only one who made me feel like I did. Her words pierced me because I understood that feeling all too well. I had spent months feeling invisible, left behind, forgotten. But hearing her say it, hearing that she had turned to someone else instead of me, was like a knife twisting in my chest. You could have told me that, I said softly. You could have told me you were scared, that you felt lost. That's what best friends are for. That's what we promise each other. I know, she choked out. But every time I thought about telling you, I imagined the look on your face. The disappointment. The anger. I couldn't bear it. So I lied instead. And the more I lied, the harder it became to come clean. For a long moment, we just sat there, the weight of her confession pressing down on us. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning inside me since the moment I saw them together. Do you love him? Her silence was answer enough. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. So what happens now? What happens when the school finds out? When your parents find out? This isn't just some secret fling, Lily. This could ruin you. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing quietly. I know. And that's why I can't tell anyone. Not my parents. Not the school. Not you. I thought I could handle it, but the longer it goes on, the more trapped I feel. Like I'm living two lives, and both of them are lies. My heart broke for her, even as my anger simmered beneath the surface. She was my best friend, the person I thought I knew better than anyone. And yet, here she was, living a life I hadn't even glimpsed until now. I reached out and took her hand, my voice shaking. Lily, you don't have to carry this alone. I'm mad at you, yes. Hurt, absolutely. But you're still my best friend. If you want out of this, I'll help you. If you want to fix things, I'll be here. But you have to let me in. No more secrets. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes, her lips trembling. Do you really mean that? After everything? Yes, I said firmly. Because I made a promise to. And even though you broke yours, I don't want to break mine. I'll always be here for you. But I can't fight for our friendship if you won't fight for it too. Her tears spilled over again as she threw her arms around me, sobbing into my shoulder. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I just didn't know how to stop lying once I started. We sat there like that for what felt like hours, clinging to each other as if our entire history depended on it. Because in a way, it did. In the weeks that followed, things weren't magically fixed. We still fought. We still cried. I still struggled to trust her again, and she still struggled to open up. But slowly, piece by piece, we began to rebuild. She ended things with Aaron, not easily, not without heartbreak, but she did it. She realized that the life she wanted couldn't be built on secrets and forbidden love. And though part of her would always carry the scars of that choice, she chose to move forward. And me? I finally stopped measuring my worth against hers. I enrolled in film school at a nearby university, determined to chase my dream on my own terms. I stopped waiting for her to hold my hand through every step and started learning how to stand on my own. But through it all, we found our way back to each other. Not perfectly, not the way it used to be, but maybe in a way that was more real. Because now we understood that friendship isn't about promises that can't be broken. It's about forgiveness. About choosing each other again and again, even when it's hard. Looking back, I realized that the secret Lily hid did change everything. It shattered the version of our friendship I thought was unbreakable. But it also forced us to grow, to see each other as flawed, complicated, human. And maybe that's what real friendship is, not a perfect dream, but the messy, painful, beautiful choice to keep going, even when the truth hurts. Because at the end of the day, she was still my best friend. And no secret, no matter how heavy, could take that away.